Hello, my dearest. Daniela here, and welcome to another episode of the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. The further I go in business, the more I see the need to talk about leadership, and more specifically, women's leadership, which is why I'm super excited about my guest today, Leslie Lyons. My conversation with Leslie left me feeling so energized. I think after you listen to the interview, you'll understand why. I love how she has this just super fun, gregarious nature coupled with an undeniable strength and confidence. It is 100% apparent that she is living her life on her own terms and being true to who she is. And that, my friends, is such a beautiful thing. So let me read you Leslie's bio, and then we can jump right into the interview. Leslie Lyons is the founder of Bombshell Movement Studio in Chicago, host of Beyond the Pole, Tales from the CEO podcast, and a sales and leadership coach for female entrepreneurs. With a background in corporate sales, youth ministry, yes, she's a Christian and the owner of a pole studio. And as a leader for studio owners throughout the US, Leslie has spent her life pouring into women emotionally and spiritually. Now more than ever, her dedication to helping entrepreneurial women lead with their heart and head is the exact type of leadership we need. So it's a great interview, lots of energy, lots of laughs, and lots of aha moments. Go ahead, have a listen, and be sure to head over to the Spa Marketing Made Easy Facebook group to keep the conversation going. All right, Leslie, welcome to the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. I'm so excited to have you on the show because talking about women's leadership is something that I am incredibly passionate about. I feel like we should talk about it every single day. Every single day.
I agree. Daniela, thank you so much for having me on your show. I am so excited to get to know you better and talk a little bit more about leadership because it does matter. And it is a conversation that we should be having every day. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a leadership coach. I really do believe that we're leaders all the time. And we need to step into that and own it really much and really own it.
But it's a skill, right? I think that people say like, oh, I'm not naturally a leader, or I'm not it's something you absolutely have to put energy and effort into. I think we all have the ability innately in us, but it needs to be nurtured, right? Because I know that as women and I guess we're just going to get right into it, but as women, we tend to put others before ourselves, whether that's at home or in business. When we start to bring on employees, it's really challenging to, especially if you are a spa owner, you're an esthetician, you're moving into all right, I'm going to hire my first employee. So often they become your friend. You can't have a hard conversation with them. You don't know how to develop them. And that's not good for you or for them.
That's right.
You're doing
or the customer.
Or the customer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think that this is something that I know I continue to work on leadership every single day. It's really wonderful for me to see the progress that I've made, but I know I still have leaps and bounds to go. But let me just, before we get too ahead of ourselves, I know I gave a bio in the intro, but in your own words, can you tell our listeners kind of what your backstory is? The bio is this is, the Instagram or whatever, but what's the real story? Who are you? Where did you come from? How did you get into this?
Yeah, totally. So my name is Leslie Lyons, and I actually started my corporate career in human resources and transitioned to sales. I worked in the tech industry and also the finance industry and education. So I actually worked in 3 industries, in human resources and selling. However, that's the boring stuff. That's the stuff that was just kind of what I did to pay the bills kind of a thing. But during that time, I also worked in youth ministry. I always forget to bring that up. That was my last actual full-time position. I worked full-time in youth ministry. But I've always had a daring side to me.
I read your little bio. I know where you're going with this one.
So yes, I've always had a daring side to me, and I've always done things that were non-traditional, but very much so about women reclaiming their sensuality, their sexuality, their voice, because there's power in those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started a pole dance studio, and I was definitely not a likely candidate to do that. But for me, I took a class.
What do you mean, like going from youth ministry into like a yeah, like our Bible school teacher is now a pole dancer.
That's right. They're like, how does this all line up? I'm like, well, Rahab, she was a little promiscuous, if you will. But no, in all seriousness, for me, it's always been about voice. And it's always been about being in tune with who you are, your intuition. And as it relates to leadership, that's extremely important. You have to trust yourself. And women don't slow down enough to hear that small voice that will lead them in situations to do the right thing. It's a practice, like you said earlier, Daniela. We have to practice these things, right? And
sorry to interrupt, but something that just has stood out to me so much as a silver lining, as a positive thing in 2020 with the pandemic and everything that we went through is, people had to stop. People had to slow down. And I spoke with so many spa owners that said, I was going 100 miles an hour this way, and I actually want to go that way. And I didn't realize that until I slowed down.
That's right. That's right. And think about it when a day spa is busy, right? Like when I go to get my brows done, my esthetician has it's one of those spas where it's not really relaxing. It's a gathering for women. So there's a lot of chit chatter. There's a lot of energy. People are going in and out all the time. And her name is Mimi. She's going all over the place. She's pointing and all the things. And here comes her front desk person with, I have this issue. I've literally been there and saw her what do I say? How do I handle this? And I'm like, Mimi, breathe. Breathe. You know what to do, but you got to take a moment and slow down in this moment. You need tools in this moment because we're not always going to have a pandemic, thank God, to make us slow down. But what we learned during this time, so thank you for bringing that up, is really we need to be able to carve that type of space in your workday. And a lot of women, we aren't taught to do those sorts of things. We don't have those types of tools at our disposal to do that. So that's one of my goals, is to give women tools to lead from a place of authenticity, from a place of what really matters. And I think that's where I would like to start when I talk about this, is that off camera, we were talking a little bit about imposter syndrome. And I'm like, well, some of us are imposters. Hello, let me just tell the truth. It's not a syndrome. It's true. And you are an imposter anytime you're living according to somebody else's rules, someone else's values. When you toe the corporate line and it's not authentic to who you are, boo-boo, it's not a syndrome. It's real. You're being an imposter. So when you come face to face with, like you said.
Okay, let's unpack this a little bit more though, because when I think of imposter syndrome, I love this. Okay, so when I think of imposter syndrome, I'm thinking of women who say, who am I to be doing this? Who am I? If it's truly a dream, because I believe if you have that dream inside of you, you 100% have the capability to achieve that. I feel like that is, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, saying, this is my intention for you. If this is a desire on your heart that you want to accomplish, you are fully capable. Because we would all, we would all nobody has all the same dreams, right?
Right.
But so often as women, we say, but I could never do that. But if you have that desire, shouldn't you be able to go after that without feeling the imposter syndrome? I get your angle totally, but like, what about that piece?
Yeah, I think if you have a desire in your heart, there's a little bit more work for me to unpack where that desire comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have all the time in the world to do this, but I am going to say this. Sometimes the desires that we have in our heart still come from a system. They're not innate. It comes from a desire that I've been told over and over and over again that this is what I should care about. For example,
You should have 2.3 kids and a white picket fence.
hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Or as a business owner, let's just bring it straight to business. I have to be the type of woman who bosses up, so people don't take advantage of me. So I'm out here, I'm booked and I'm busy and I'm this and I'm that. And maybe that is so far from how you want to run your business.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you see your day spa as a place of healing. Maybe you see your day spa as something that is completely non-traditional. Maybe it's a social cause behind why you do what you do. So when I'm talking to women, we have to deconstruct. Is this a real value? Is this a real desire that you have? Or have you picked this up along the way? And so just because you feel it doesn't mean it's true.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when we talk about values, I separate them by saying there's aspirational values and then there's innate values. An aspirational value has its place. Like I want to be operate in more integrity, for example, or you want to operate a certain way. But let's say your real innate thing is justice, but you're out here trying to be everything to everybody. You're trying to please everybody, but no, your innate value says there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. How do I lean into that part of me? Because when I show up to my team with there's a right way and a wrong way to do things, as opposed to, well, what do you think, Susie? Kelly, what do you think? When you know in your mind, that's not how you'd like to operate, but you've been conditioned.
Where do you think that people pleasing comes from?
Oh, there's a variety of places, right? But for the purpose of this, I definitely think it's conditioning as women folk, those of us who identify as women. I think it's social conditioning. I think it can also be family conditioning. I believe that women put pressure on women to behave a certain type of way. We need to be nice. There's a difference between being kind and being nice. Girls are socialized to be nice. Think about how you label women how some women label women who are outspoken or who speak their mind or who are direct. Those women are often ostracized.
I'm very direct as a person, and I'm always like, yeah, I've experienced that in my life.
Do you know your Enneagram number?
No.
Okay.
I don't, but I'm very like, just cut to the chase and say it like it is, even if I'm always the one that just says it.
You might be an 8. I don't know. How do you feel about justice? Like, is that really important to you? Like the underdog being taken care of? Does that matter to you a lot?
Certainly I feel like there's a very clear right and wrong way to do things. And I feel like there's a process in which everything should be done and, follow the process. And yeah, is that an 8?
No, that's a 1.
Okay.
That's a 1. But let me tell you real quick, high level. So in leadership and helping, because this is hard to navigate. It's hard to unpack. It's a lot of ways that it can go for women. But so I use the tool of the Enneagram to give us some language around who we are innately and leading from that place. So from a very high overview, the Enneagram is a personality assessment, just like Myers-Briggs, just like DISC.
I use Myers-Briggs a lot.
Okay. So it's a personality typing system. What makes the Enneagram different is that it not only tells you what you do, like Myers-Briggs focuses a lot on, are you introverted? Are you extroverted? Where you get your energy from? Here are the best situations for you to work in, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. The Enneagram not only tells you what you do best, but it tells you why you do what you do. And why we do what we do, there's a light side to that and there's a shadow side to that.
Okay.
And the Enneagram is going to make you face both. So it's not going to be like Strength Finders where it's like, Daniela, this is how you're awesome. And it's going to do that, but it's also going to say, this is what you look like under stress. As a leader, the two most important things we need to know is number one, how I see myself, and number two, how my team sees me.
Do you have two numbers? Now that you're saying, I really think maybe I am an 8-1. Is there two numbers in this thing?
There is. There's wings. So you have your primary numbers, and then your wings are the two numbers that are on the side. So
I think someone posted this in a Facebook group, and I took the test, and okay. I think I am an 8. I think I am.
Because I'm an 8. And the thing that drives me is I don't ever, ever, ever want to be taken advantage of. So think about that from a leadership standpoint, how that could help me and hinder me. Mm-hmm. It hinders me because it makes it very difficult for me to trust other people. And try leading people who you can't trust. Let me know how it works out. It doesn't, right? So that point of development for me is always in my mind. I'm always having to check that. I'm always having to make sure that I have space where I actually trust and empower my team. But conversely, if someone, like perfect example, the customer's always right, not at Bombshell, which is the studio I own. I fiercely protect my team, fiercely. So if a customer comes with a complaint, I listen, but you would never berate my team. You're never going to tell me that they're terrible and all the things that people can do when they don't get what they want, because I fiercely protect them. And so justice matters to me. So a customer may have violated a rule, violated a policy, and my poor front desk person was just enforcing the policy. You're not going to berate her, right? No, it's not right. And we're going to talk about those sorts of things. So, but knowing that about myself is how I lead myself first. So before we can lead other people, you must lead yourself.
So let's get a little bit more, because I don't think you can know how to lead yourself unless you feel comfortable using your voice. And I think that you talk a lot on your website, and we were talking a little bit before about how one of the primary focuses of what you do is really empowering women to use their voice because of what were some of the stats you said about women in entrepreneurship and women, we give back to our communities. There's so many things that women do when they're in leadership roles, but we're just not in enough leadership roles. Right?
Absolutely. The tenet to using your voice, though, is knowing what you stand for. You must know what you stand for. When you operate in integrity with who and what you believe, your voice is a lot easier to find than when you're still trying to figure out what you stand for. So let's use you as an example. You said there's a clear way, there's a right and a wrong way to do things. So you're probably the type of person who pays a lot of attention to details. Like you could come into a room and notice that this picture behind me is crooked.
I'm very detail oriented. Yes.
Right. So from a sales standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, you're going to see things that other people don't see. You're going to operate in a spirit of excellence. So as a client, I can expect that when I come to anything that Danielle is doing, whether that's consulting or when you ran a med spa, there was going to be this spirit of everything is in order. It's going to be excellent from the time I come in to the time I leave. It's going to be a great experience. It doesn't matter what container you're in. So whether you're consulting or if you're in a med spa, because it's who you are.
100%. Yeah.
When you start to speak up, though, about regulatory things in an industry, for example, or I'm I'm trying to think of another example of something that I think of regulations. I think of rules. I think of things that are in the industry where maybe people aren't being as integrous as they could be. Daniela would be the person to speak up about that. So let's say there was something going around. There's some type of product that's being sold in some skincare product that we know is terrible, but they've got great marketing. They've got great influence. Someone like you would step up and be like, I know this is the hot thing, but this is not what we should be doing. Mm-hmm. We should not be compromising in this way. And here's the litany of reasons why.
Yes.
Right?
I can see that.
That's your voice. That's your voice. And that's carving out a niche for you. And you'll feel good about that. You'll feel good about informing and educating. You'll feel good.
So what I keep thinking about, because like I still feel like those are really big examples, and I want to bring this down to something that spa owners can do on it. Like one thing that just keeps coming to my mind is a complaint that spa owners are like, my clients just keep sending me DMs and I always am responding to my DMs. And it's like, there's a clear boundary. You've got to teach other people how they can communicate and treat you. I'm like, can you message the CEO of Starbucks?
Hello.
Right? Hello. So why should somebody, unless you open that door and leave that as a avenue, because that's how you prefer to communicate, right? Then that's fine because you're the business owner. You get to do it any way that you want, but do not feel overwhelmed and overworked and like your business is just chaos if, because you're not setting boundaries, which is using your voice, which is knowing what you need to do to be the best, what I call like be the best version of yourself, which is really, being in integrity, showing up how you need to show up.
Can I ask you a question about that then? Using that specific example, why is that boundary important?
The DM or just being true to yourself?
Nope, the DM. Why is it important to you that clients not DM you all night? Why does that matter?
Because if they are DMing me all night, I am not able to fully recharge. And my business becomes a stress. It becomes a burden. And I want my business, like I became an entrepreneur because I want freedom. I want flexibility. I want financial growth, but everybody needs their little buckets. And when I come home, I want to be with my kids. I want to be with my husband. I want to take a bath. I want to have a glass of wine, right? I don't want to think about, can I get in for an appointment on Saturday? Fine. If you want to DM me and my team responds during business hours, that's fine. But like, if there's that pressure on me that I feel I can never escape, then I'm not going to show up in the way that I need to show up because I'm going to be stressed out.
That's right.
I'm going to be, work is going to be a burden.
Okay. Now I'm going to flip this and I'm going to give you two totally different personality types. I'm going to use you. We don't know what your type is in the Enneagram world. We don't type you, but let's just say you are a 1. So a 1 is someone who we've talked about who knows there's a right and a wrong way to do things. Boundaries for you, you just said it. Why this is so important. It's also about your family time and the ability to recharge. As a leader, that becomes the thread of what you talk about, why you do what you do. So for example, if you don't want people DMing you in the middle of the night, I don't want you DMing my studio manager in the middle of the night. When I talk about that, I would talk about it steeped in the language of, we value boundaries here. And this is why, because we value your mental space. We value your personal time. And as women, collectively, so you take it away from just you, but collectively, we all could use some tightening up in that area. In this business, we lead with that. So because of that, Susie customer, we don't answer DMs after 5 o'clock. You can expect a response between normal business hours, blah, 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 blah. That's a very different conversation than just saying, don't DM me. Or I don't respond to DMs. The energy is very different than that. Do you feel the difference in that energy?
Yes.
Okay, now let me flip it though, Daniela.
Okay.
Let's say I'm a 3. Or let's say I'm a 2. And these personalities are all about helping. And I love it. And I'm energized. So let's say I'm a 2. I just love to help people. For them, that would not be a breach of boundary for them. This is why it matters about who you are and what you think. Getting DMs to a 2 is like music to their ears because they feel like they're connected. They feel like you need me. They feel like you're accessible. Whereas something like that would drain you, it energizes a 2.
See, on Christmas break, I took full 2 weeks that I did not, I was not on Facebook, Instagram, the internet at all. I didn't even know where my phone was half the time. I mean, we're on quarantine, right? So like my people are all here. So it was like, I completely was disconnected because when I show up for work, I'm here 110%. I am fully focused. I am giving every single, like you said, the excellence, but it's all my energy goes into this. And then when it's like, okay, work's over, it's completely done.
Yeah. And for you, that works for you. And that's what energizes you. And it allows you to do your best work. For a 2, that would be death for them. So it's not about a right or a wrong thing. It's about an innate person.
Knowing what you need.
Yes. And so when we look at that from a leadership standpoint, a 2 would be having the conversation with her staff that we're available anytime to our students, I'm saying students because of what I do, but to our clients, because we want them to feel like they can reach out to us at any time and we're there to serve them. This is our value, that we're accessible, that we respond quickly, that they can count on us to be there for them. It's not a right or wrong. It's about what energetically can you hold. Leadership, you're leading yourself first. Everything you do as a leader needs to be steeped in those values. What do we value? Now, we have hundreds of values. I say this all the time. But not all of them are appropriate for the work we do. So the first thing I would suggest to a spa owner is for you to really sit down and figure out innately, what do I care about? And then from that, what things apply to my spa? Once you identify those things that apply to your spa, and it's usually 3 or 4 things. It's not this laundry list of, here's 100 things that we do and care about. No, it's 3 or 4 things. And those things become the hallmark for leadership. So one of the things that I'm big on is voice. Doesn't matter if I'm in youth ministry or if I'm at a pole dance studio. A woman's voice matters to me. There was a situation, and I love this. We had a client that was not a very pleasant client. Let's say that, okay? And every time I saw her, I was just like, whew, this is a lot energetically to deal with. And I was like, she was the type who would send emails to complain, every little thing, that sort of thing. And I was in a staff meeting. So we're talking about leadership. I do this for a living, but I'm not a perfect leader. But this is the power of values. So I'm in a staff meeting. This client name comes up. And I'm like, let me guess. She has another complaint. She has another issue. I don't even want to hear it today. That's what I said to my staff of 15 people. I'm like, I don't even want to hear it today. One of my staff members then spoke up and said, well, we value women's voices here. So
it's like your kids, when you're it's like my 3-year-old's my greatest teacher. It's like, oh.
And that's exactly what it felt like. Y'all like, oh shit, did you just really pull a value statement on me? But that truly is a dream for a leader. Because the biggest problem we have when you go from that position of one-man show to scaling is people having the heart of the leader. Mm-hmm. Values give that heartbeat. When you are clear and you lead with those things, people aren't you, but they have the same heart as you. So they have different personalities.
They can get behind the vision of the company. They get behind the why of the company.
Oh my gosh, yeah. As Simon Sinek always says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Mm-hmm. Which is why it's so important to understand, like one thing that we talk about a lot is like, you have your why as an entrepreneur, like why you started your own business, but then there's also the why of your company. Like when you start your own business, you want your own schedule, you want to make some money, et cetera. But when the why of the company is not, I want Daniela to make her own schedule and make lots of money.
That's why we exist.
Yes. No, it's like you want women to look and feel their best. You want women to have confidence to go after their dreams. You want women to whatever for your spa, like whatever your focus is, getting your employees or contractors or the people that work for you and with you, getting them to truly believe in that why, I think is incredible. And that takes real leadership, is to be able to get into that space.
It does. And it takes keeping out why you do what you do in front of your people all the time. It is not a one-time conversation. It's not a page in your employee manual. Hell, it's not even pictures on your wall. When you're in corporate, they've got integrity, soar, and there's this big ego on the wall, right? That's not leadership. Leadership is being in the trenches and giving an example like my staff member did with me. Mm-hmm. Here's a situation where you're trying to stifle someone's voice. That's not how we roll here. Mm-hmm. It's in those everyday moments where you can affirm someone who's living those values, but you've got to be clear about this is why we stand, what we stand for. Even when you were saying you're in the business because you want women to feel better and look better. My question to that spa owner is why? Why is that important? There's a bigger why. Mm-hmm. Every spa owner wants women to look and feel better. Every brow esthetician, lash person, massage therapists, we all want people to feel better. But why? Is it because you were in a domestic violence situation and you were stripped of your voice? You were stripped of your agency, or your mother was that way? What was the why? Maybe you're a hairstylist because your mother had cancer and she didn't have anyone to style her hair. What's the real reason why
you've got to, and I think that's why this is so important, is so often knowing your why is like business 101 or like, what's your ideal client avatar? People blow over that, right? So boring. But when you really look at it, it's like, no, you've got to know who you're speaking to so you can know the language, and you've got to know your why so you can connect, because, and we're the same with that. Like you say, oh, you want women to look and feel their best. Well, why? Because they'll go after the promotion, because they'll be a better mom, because they'll be a better spouse, friend, whatever, right? Like all of these things, when you have the confidence, when you feel like you're doing something for yourself, when you feel like you look good, right? Like I remember my mom, every time if I was having a bad day, put some lipstick on, right? If you feel good or if you look good, you show up for yourself in a different way. You deserve it.
Then the next layer to that would be in a coaching situation is, why does that matter? Showing up in a different way. Why does that matter? Why does it matter if you're a better mom? Why does it matter if you go after that promotion? What is the big thing that we're all going after that people can buy into? Because the vision has to be bigger, right? The vision has to be bigger. It has to be connected to something that people want to buy into. And for so many people, especially in the spa industry, there's a lot of sameness. When I look at Instagram pages, I see beautiful brows, I see beautiful lashes, I see relaxed women on tables with stones, but that doesn't tell
That's
me.
not real.
And even if it was real, but the point is, if I just moved to town, if I just moved to Chicago and I'm looking for an esthetician and I go on Instagram and all I see is pretty brows and lashes, how do I decide who I go to? And this is the sales part of it that I'm not going to get into, but how do I decide? I'm going to choose the person who's closest to me and whose prices seem reasonable. And people who make decisions off of price and proximity, you're now officially a commodity. You're welcome. And who wants that? So we've got to get better as leaders and conveying.
That was a really good quote. I think I think that's going to be our Instagram quote. People that make decisions off of price and proximity make you a commodity.
They do.
And that's why brand is so important.
And value-based brand is what makes you different. And I'm going to leave this here because I literally could talk about this forever, Daniela.
I know. And this is, yeah.
Like seriously. But one of the things is that people, imposter syndrome, competitor, sameness, oneness, all of that is because people always like, well, there's no competition because no one can be you. Well, hell, no one knows you because you never talk about anything. I don't know why you care about why you do what you do. You never share that story with me. So you're right. No one can do what you do. No one can be but until you use your voice, spa owner, until you tell me the reason that confidence matters so much to you, you're just another pretty face on Instagram. Mm-hmm. People want experiences. People want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. Well, hell, I got to know you to like you. Give me something here, people. Give me something. This is actually why I started coaching and moving into the beauty industry, was because I honestly believe in the mission behind what estheticians do. I know what it can be like for a woman to look in the mirror, because I'm a survivor of domestic violence. I know what it was like to look in the mirror and to see a black eye, even when it wasn't there. Mm-hmm. Wearing lashes, when I looked in the mirror, I saw beauty for once in my life. When I got my lashes, it was an emotional freaking experience for me. I'm getting a little choked up now. It was an emotional experience for me because every time I looked in the mirror before, it was bruised, it was battered. So to actually see beauty in my eyes, Mimi, my lash esthetician, gave me that. Mm-hmm. That was a gift that changed my life.
And I think that's something that I just try, and because one of my big whys I want to flip this industry so much on its head, because estheticians are looked at as, oh, well, you can't be smart and pretty, right? You can't go to beauty school, and I'm looking at like these women who are bringing in multiple six figures per year. They are badass women. They are like killing it, mm-hmm. but they're just estheticians. They mm-hmm. just went to beauty school. They're not, you know what I mean? Like that makes me so insane. And what we have to do as estheticians, the emotional intelligence that it takes to not just technically know how to do lashes, but also how do you show up for that person on your table? Because sometimes it is someone who has suffered domestic violence. Sometimes it is someone who is a mom who hasn't slept in a week because her kid won't sleep through the night and just needs a second, like there's so many things. And sometimes someone who's just thrilled just to have lashes and they're joyous and they just love you, like there's all the things. But we have to, as estheticians, as providers, be able to feel that mm-hmm. and give that person what they need, because it's so much more than popping pimples, doing lashes, shaping brows, all of that. It's so much more.
And in order to change the narrative, which is why when I started coaching in my industry, it was similar. People don't think highly of strippers. People don't think highly of that type of woman. They don't think highly of that. And I was like, we need to speak the language of what it means to be an empowered woman sexually. We need to, and that was my mission very much. So like, we need to flip this. And the only way we're going to flip this is if we start sharing our stories, what we value, why it makes a difference. We've got to do these things. So from a leadership standpoint, when you know what you stand for, then you lay out, this is what my business stands for. Now you hire towards those values. So those values are infused in your job descriptions just from the get-go. So you're attracting the right team from the door. The questions in your interview are framed around those values so that people aren't like, are you a team player? I always use Ghostbusters. Did you ever see Ghostbusters?
Oh, yes. A child of the 80s.
Yes. So remember, he shows up to the door and she's possessed and she's like, are you the key master? And he's like, no.
Are you the gatekeeper? Right,
the key master. And he's like, no. And she slams the door. And so he's like, knocks on the door again. And she asks the same question. Are you the key master? And he's like, yes. And she lets him come in, right? This is how some interviews are. Are you a team player? Who the hell is going to say no?
I know.
I mean, these questions are like, and this is how we get the wrong people on our team. This is how we don't get people who are aligned with the vision that we have because we didn't ask the specific question around a value.
Oh, that's so funny.
But it's true, right?
It's true, but it's funny. Are you a team player?
Well, yes.
We're hiring this year. We're actually hiring like 3 people in Q1. Mm-hmm. So now all I'm going to think about is Ghostbusters when I'm doing my interview.
But if you really do, because I really want your spa owners to have takeaways. If they sit down and say, here are the 3 values that we have, let's make sure we put that in the job description. And now we're going to ask questions around these values specifically, open-ended questions where they give me an example of that value in action. You have a much better chance of making sure you get the right person on your team.
I love it. Yeah. I think our spa owners are going to have to listen to this episode twice. I think they listen to it now, grab a pen, take some notes. Because really it is like, sometimes it's just like one little takeaway that you can change that could, if you ask the right question and don't hire the wrong person, it is life-changing in your business.
Oh my goodness. Brene Brown always says clear is kind, right?
Oh yes. Yep. I read that. Dare to Lead. Love it.
Oh, love that book, right? Such a great leadership book. Everybody should read it. All your spa owners should read it. Such a great book. Clear is kind. Clear starts in the job description. Mm-hmm. This is who we are. In my job description, Daniela, it literally says, if you're this type of person, great, we want you. This job is not right for you if you're this type of person. And I get pushback. This is how you know you're doing it right. When someone sends you an angry DM because of your job description, Eureka, you hit it on the head. Because
attract and repel, right? You're supposed to. Yeah.
And I want that from a leadership standpoint as well. So once I've hired you, then guess what? I review you to those same values. They show up in your performance review. Values are not just values on the wall. When I'm looking to affirm an employee, right? When I'm looking to encourage them, the conversation is around values in action. It's every day, all day. I'll end with this. I spoke to a spa owner in Virginia just 2 days ago. They have a 7,000 square foot day spa. The mom is a mom and daughter team. The mom is now retired, but I could feel the values through the conversation. The mom was all about teachable. People need to be teachable. I'm constantly learning as the owner. You're constantly learning as the massage therapist and the esthetician. We help each other out because it's all about teaching and growing and learning every day. I was like, sis, you need to come and consult on this because honestly, you're talking to me about this, but you've got this down. Mm-hmm. This is how you grew to this. And so many spa owners want to scale. You want to be bigger, you want to do more. But until you are crystal clear on your values and why you do what you do, you won't be able to convince other people to get on board. And that's the most challenging part of leading people. Mm. It's worth the work. And yes, it's a lot. Because you were saying earlier, like, this seems really big. Hell, it is. It is. But it's
worth it.
Work. This is worthy work.
Good. Oh my gosh. Okay. So good. So many good things from this episode. Where can our listeners stay in touch with you, find you, follow you, all the things to stay in touch?
Yeah, thank you again. This was fun. They can find me on my website, Leslie D. Lyons, so it's my name.com. And actually on my website, I have a little quiz that talks about your leadership style that kind of ties into, do you lead with your heart? Do you lead with your head? Do you lead with your gut? So they could take that quiz and it'll start them down the path of uncovering some of those innate values and their true leadership style. Completely free. It's a quiz on my website. Mm-hmm. I also am beefing up my presence. I'm going to do a reel. I'm going to do Daniela. I'm going to point. I'm going to do a reel soon, but Leslie D. Lyons on Instagram as well.
Okay. I'm going to find you on here.
Yeah.
Very good. And we'll include all the links below the episode as well. So everyone can click the link, stay in touch, all of those good things. Thank you so much. This was so just nice and refreshing and a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate just how you showed up today. Super present, super engaging. Thank you.
No, thank you for having this platform. And honestly, the work you're doing in this industry, it tugged at my heartstrings because women need to be shown as much respect and valued as possible. Eradicating stereotypes, that's feminism in action. So bravo to you, because that's what you're doing. And please, 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 please don't stop, because that's just such worthy work. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, you guys. So head on over to the Spa Marketing Made Easy Facebook group if you want to continue this conversation. We've got lots of additional resources in there. Be sure to follow Leslie. You're going to want to hear more from this woman. She's incredible. And we'll catch you on the next episode.